AV Shop Talk, Episode 2.
Podcasting from Boston, Massachusetts and Los Angeles, California, this is AV Shop Talk. Covering the latest audiovisual trends and emerging technologies, this is where the AV pros come to talk shop. With your hosts, Nate Schneider and Jason Griffin.
Well, I know it's only episode 2, but I tell you what, Jason, I am really liking this podcast. How you doing over there in Los Angeles tonight?
I'm good, Nate. How are you?
You know, I'm doing all right. It's a little bit cold. We got the whole polar vortex going on right now. I guess that's weatherman speak for it's winter out, but it's pretty chilly up here in the Northeast. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I hear it's been cold all over the country, so hopefully everybody's staying warm out there.
What's happening in the AV Shop Talk this episode?
Yeah, so I'm excited for this episode. We actually had a chance to sit down with Micha Risling, the marketing chair of the HDBaseT Alliance, and we talked with him a little while ago, back in October, about the, at the time, release of HDBaseT version 2.0, which is actually kind of an exciting technology, especially for the residential world, as it's kind of HDBaseT's effort to move their technology downstream, so to speak, into residential. So it was an interesting conversation for me, especially coming from the residential side, and curious to know kind of how you felt about the interview.
Yeah, I thought it went really well. We got some good information from Micha. We asked him some tough questions there, about bandwidth and stuff like that, and trying to understand, HDMI 2.0 and, if HDBaseT 2.0 is going to be able to handle that. I believe it's like 18 megabit per second. But, the cool thing about HDBaseT is that, it has audio, video, power, control, and Ethernet all over a single category cable. And if you're in commercial or residential integration, it's kind of hard not to get excited about that a little bit and having it, seamlessly work. So I think I'm really looking forward to what's happening. I mean, the technology is still pretty new. So, yeah. It's not fully developed yet. They're still working on it. But I'm excited for what's going to happen. I think it's going to open up a lot of doors for installers and integrators. Yeah,
it's definitely an exciting technology. And like you said, right now, it's still almost in its infancy in a lot of ways. The 5-play feature set that you mentioned with all of those 5 features really hasn't been fully implemented by a lot of manufacturers yet. So really, we're just sort of seeing the tip of the iceberg. But I know one of the things that is really helping it catch on and gain traction is its reputation for reliability, especially when compared to sort of quote-unquote traditional HDMI products and extenders. We've had great results with HDBaseT, and I'm never hesitant to use it because, frankly, it just works, which regrettably isn't always something we can say in this industry, unfortunately. But we all know that, and that's one of the reasons why we're so excited about HDBaseT.
Yeah, it'll be good to see what happens in 2014 and the years to come and how things develop. So, all right, well let's cut to the chase here. This interview was recorded on October 2013. So without further ado, let's get to the AV Shop Talk.
AV Shop Talk.
Yeah, hi, Micha. We're super excited to be talking to you tonight. So again, thanks for taking the time. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe just real briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what exactly you do for the HDBaseT Alliance.
Okay, so my name is Micha Risling. I'm the marketing chair of the HDBaseT Alliance. I'm involved with this technology and alliance from the beginning. I'm also the VP Marketing and Business Development of Valence, the company who actually invented the technology, and is actually the provider of the chipset that enables this kind of magic to happen.
All right, very good. Well, yeah, we wanted to kind of jump right in, and we're assuming most people that are listening to this are going to have at least a fundamental understanding of what HDBaseT is and what it does. So we wanted to kind of jump right ahead and talk about HDBaseT 2.0. I know this was a recent announcement for you guys, and there's been kind of a good deal of hype about it. So one of the features of HDBaseT 2.0 that I was particularly interested in was the HomePlay feature. And I was curious if you could talk a little bit about HomePlay, and also kind of there was talk of HomePlay switchers, and I was a little curious if you could elaborate on what would sort of differentiate a HomePlay switcher from like a traditional matrix from, say, Atlona or Wirestorm that has HDBaseT outputs on it.
Yeah, that's actually a good question and a good point. Going back to the basics of HDBaseT, HDBaseT started as a point-to-point technology. Okay, like HDMI, like other technologies, like in a way helps you to connect a source to a display, but not more than that. Given our experience and partners in the Pro AV market and in the consumer electronic market, and in that sense, we have a unique alliance that combines them too. Actually, it's the only alliance in the world that actually combines market leaders from both markets. We said, well, maybe it's time for us to take the Pro AV market, user experience, all the benefits that you are so familiar with. But I have to admit that it's only probably you and more, not too many people. 99.9 people of the percent of the population is not familiar with even with the name Pro AV, not to mention with the company and with companies and concepts. Mm-hmm. And we said we have a kind of unique opportunities of taking Pro AV to the masses. Okay. Now, HDBaseT was very successful in actually getting the Pro AV to be much easier in terms of implementation, in terms of making it much more easy to use, improves the user experience within the Pro AV market. And I think we are ready to actually copy it or duplicate the same success into the consumer electronics. Now, we are targeting home applications. So if we will be successful, we expect everyone to enjoy it. Okay, everyone, I'm saying everyone will be able to go and buy stuff at Best Buy, Amazon, whatever, deploy it by themselves, and really get to what the Pro AV concept is.
So if I could just jump in right here and make sure I understand what you're saying. So eventually, when I go to buy, a brand new 4K OLED TV in the future, when I pull up the menu sources, I'll have HDMI, DVI, USB, and HDBaseT will also show up as a input source for that television.
Yeah, but that this would happen anyway, even with our first generation. Okay, and that's what people are doing anyway. If you buy today projectors, AV receivers, professional displays, high-end displays, you will already find HDBaseT, at least in some of them, and you'll find more and more of them. What we are thinking about Spec 2.0, or the target of Spec 2.0 is much more than that. Spec 2.0, once implemented, and it will be in a form of end devices and switchers and matrices, it will allow you to connect all your devices together, okay? All your TVs and Blu-ray and game consoles and PCs, AV receivers, projectors, all of them should be connected together. So, of course, the end devices will have either an input or output or combination of HDBaseT ports. But what is more important is that you will have an HDBaseT switch in the center that will allow you to connect all the stuff together, exactly like it's being done today in the Pro AV. You mentioned Crestron and Atlona. That's what people are doing today when they can afford it. And that's a big issue.
Got it. So basically, as opposed to the existing matrix switchers that have HDBaseT outputs, what we're actually talking about with HomePlay is essentially bringing the cost of that down significantly and making it so it sort of auto configures and is easier to deploy for everyday homeowners. Is that correct?
Yeah, that will be the outcome of the concept or the specification once it's implemented. But it's actually more than that. First of all, it's not just outputs; it's outputs and inputs. But I think there is a major difference, and let me tell you what it is, and this will answer your question, what's the difference between an HDBaseT switch to switchers that you can now buy off the shelf from Atlona and Creston and the other guys. When you do a switching today, you do the switching on the physical layer, which means if you on one hand you have an HDMI that goes over HDBaseT, the switcher itself will do the switching on the HDMI level. Okay, so the switcher will get the HDBaseT, extract HDMI, switching will be done. You will regenerate HDBaseT, you will send the HDMI over HDBaseT and send it again, and that's the way it goes. Now, this is good for the Pro AV, but for the consumer electronics, for basic entry-level products, you don't really want to change your system every 2 or 3 years, okay? Now it's HDMI. Tomorrow it's going to be something else that people are sending over HDBaseT. In the future, it might be even a new technology that no one is even familiar with. Now, the concept of Spec 2.0 is that the switching will be done on the HDBaseT level, okay? We don't care whether it was HDMI, whether it's DisplayPort, whether it's USB, Ethernet, AVB, or something else. From a switching perspective, switching is being done on the HDBaseT level. And in a way, that gives you a kind of a system, okay, that it's future-proof. It's already there.
Right.
You don't need to change it. You don't need to play with that. It makes it much more easy to implement, okay? Cheaper, of course, smaller, much more cost-effective, and easy to use and easy to configure. And that's the major difference between what you can find today, because your point is very true. People are saying, well, what do you mean? We already see HDBaseT switchers and matrices. So what will be the major difference? This is a kind of a major difference.
Got it. Thank you. As part of that explanation, actually, I'm glad you mentioned HDBaseT's ability to route AVB as well as obviously HDMI. We hear a lot of conversations lately about HDBaseT versus AVB has been kind of a hot topic. People talk about the two as if they're sort of competing technologies, but you were actually quoted in an article in Commercial Integrator back in June that these two technologies are actually complementary. So I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on that, maybe give a hypothetical example of where these two technologies might coexist in the same installation.
Yeah, it goes back to the early days when people were saying that HDMI and HDBaseT compete.
Yeah.
Okay. And many people still believe that HDBaseT is going to kill HDMI, although if you're going to look back and still, we never said that. On the contrary, I was always against that. I say, guys, how can we kill HDMI if we're actually using it? People are using HDBaseT to send HDMI. In a way, we are helping HDMI to expand, or in a way, we are fixing some of the limitations of HDMI, okay? Because we consider HDBaseT not as a new connectivity type, okay? HDBaseT, from our perspective, and we proved that in the Pro AV market, is a kind of a superset. From my perspective, it's a kind of a highway in which you have different types of technologies, mainly connectivity technologies, that are using HDBaseT to extend the distance, and HDBaseT in a way also helps to converge them all, okay? So exactly like we did with HDMI, or we can do with DisplayPort, and we do it with USB and other controls. AVB is another example. We are doing Ethernet, okay, from the beginning. From our perspective, AVB is a kind of an improvement for Ethernet, okay? By the way, that's exactly what the AVB guys are doing. They took some of the limitation of Ethernet, okay? They improved them so it will be more suitable for sending real-time, mainly compressed audio, at least for now, okay? Which is great for us because if it solves a problem, we really expect people to use that for sending many compressed streams of audio, and they can use HDBaseT to forward that, and together with other streams. Once again, video, HDMI, USB, whatever they have.
Yeah. So that's interesting that HDBaseT is not actually an Ethernet protocol, but it in fact carries Ethernet as one of its 5 things that it can transport. And if you wouldn't mind, could you talk a little bit about bandwidth? I know maximum bandwidth has kind of been an interesting topic for some of my colleagues and people that I've been speaking with about these the new technology, and specifically, can HDBaseT 2.0 support HDMI 2.0, which was just released, I believe, last month?
Yeah, that's a hot topic in the market today. Now, when you talk about bandwidth and HDMI 2.0, you need to divide HDMI 2.0 into 2 parts, okay? The main buzz around HDMI 2.0 is the ability to support 4K 60, which is kind of a trend. Now, if you look what 4K 60 is all about, you'll see that there are, now at least in the market, there are 2 flavors. What is starting to be very popular is the 4K 60 420. In terms of bandwidth, it's from the HDMI perspective, it's 10.2 gigabits. Okay. By the way, it's exactly what was supported with HDMI 1.4. The only issue with HDMI 1.4 is that specific format, not the throughput, not the bandwidth that was required, was not supported. Now they simply had the support for this specific video format. In parallel to that, they also introduced a double bandwidth to be able to support the full 4K 60. Okay? Now, 4K 60 420, which is what the majority of the customers are doing today and also in the near future, is supported by HDBaseT 1.0. Okay? In fact, it was out there from the early days. Actually, no one was using it because there was no way to drive it, because there was no equipment that supported that. The good news is that the HDMI in the market already supports that, which is that's a huge benefit. Now, going back to the question of, and once again, we don't improve HDBaseT to follow the HDMI 2.0 or DisplayPort. Okay, when we look at the market, we try to see what is really required. Okay, it's not a marketing buzz. Okay, we're not issuing new specification just because we need to create a buzz. Okay, so the markets today, looking in, a year from now, 2 years from now, 10.2 is more than enough. We do have on our roadmap, okay, the next generation that will double that. Okay, not just because of HDMI 2.0, there are other reasons, other market segment and stuff like that. Okay,
right.
This is you mentioned AVP, you mentioned Ethernet. This is one of the advantages that we have over Ethernet. Okay, we are not limited to the Ethernet or IEEE roadmap. Ethernet, when they move from 1 gig, they need to jump to 10G and they need to jump to 40. Okay, doing 40 over copper is something that I don't believe they will be able to do or they will be able to achieve. We have the flexibility, and that's one of the advantages of the HDBaseT switch. And that's what we have done. We have the flexibility to fine-tune our solution to specific markets. IEEE, when they come with a solution, they need to come up with the generic one. Okay, AVB, what they're trying not to do is they're trying to fix some of the concept of the overall Ethernet and fine-tune it to specific segment. But from an HDBaseT perspective, we for sure have more flexibility. And what we have done with Spec 2.0 in order to enable that, we did what we refer to as cross-layer optimization. If you look at the 7 layers, the OC7 communication layers, we actually did optimization across the layers to come up with a concept that really will allow consumer to enjoy video or multimedia distribution in the home.
That's really interesting. So we've talked a lot about some of the future and recent developments of HDBaseT. I wanted to touch on one thing. A lot of people I know in the residential side, at least, currently some of the guys I work with really only know of HDBaseT and its widely available implementation right now is kind of as a fancy HDMI extender, which I know doesn't fully utilize the 5-play feature set. But I am curious just exactly what it is about HDBaseT and the way that it transmits signal on the wire that makes it so much more reliable. Because in my experience, it is a far superior extender, and I don't tend to have nearly as many issues with missed handshakes and HDCP issues when I'm using HDBaseT extenders. So what is it exactly about your guys' sort of secret sauce that does make it that much more reliable?
I would say, HDBaseT from the beginning was developed as a technology that will be able to actually do all the stuff that I just mentioned, okay? If we would have just designed it as a simple HDMI extender, I don't think it's worth the effort.
Right. What I guess I'm wondering simply is, what is it about a traditional HDMI extender and the way that it's transmitting signal versus an HDMI extender that makes it superior?
Okay, so the whole concept is different. Let's speak a little bit about HDMI. Okay, HDMI and HDMI extender, which are more or less the technology that HDMI is using is based on high-speed SerDeses. Okay, it means that the data is being sent serially over a few wires, and the problem is the frequencies. Frequencies are extremely high, especially now with the introduction of the double bandwidth. The problem is even going to be increased. Now, when you are trying to send high speed over copper, over cables, there's always going to be an issue. Okay, HDMI was developed in a way that first they developed the technology itself, and then they said, "Oh, we need to come up with a cable that will will enable us to send the signals in the way that they were implemented." And this is very difficult. So they had to come up with a special connector, special cables, and the problem increases over time because the frequencies are higher and higher and higher. And if you look at the typical HDMI installation, you see that the cables are getting shorter and more expensive, and people complain that they have more and more problems. Okay? Which makes sense because it's all about the bandwidth. Okay? Now, when HDBaseT was developed, we took the opposite approach. We said, this is the cable we need to work with. It's a Cat5e cable, UTP, 100 meter long. It's not just the cable. It's also the wall plates and the installation. We need to develop a technology that will be able to work over this type of installation. Okay? This is a huge task, very difficult to work with. But the technology developed in order to be able to do that. One of the things we did is using a different modulation scheme, which allows us to send relatively low frequency signals over these cables. So that's the main reason why solution is much more reliable. Okay, so the concept is totally different, and that's why people are still amazed by the fact that it works, because it's not just a small improvement compared to HDMI. It's not that we did some better booster or something like that, okay, or eye opener. It's totally a different concept, and no one expected someone to come up with a solution like that for an HDMI extender. Once again, the market is not big enough, not attractive enough for a company or for an alliance to develop something like that.
Of course, yeah. It just the question dawned on me because that's sort of its current implementation, at least heavily in the residential market. But yeah, we're definitely excited for the future of HDBaseT and for people to actually fully utilize that 5-play feature set.
Now you mentioned HDMI extenders. I just came back from CDI, and the same was for Infocom. HDBaseT now is penetrating into end devices. Okay, as I said, you see that in most of the new projectors. If you look at Panasonic, Epson, Hitachi, NEC, you'll see HDBaseT. If you look at new AV receivers, companies like Integra, Onkyo, and Pioneer, they already embedded HDBaseT into the product, and they are very, very successful. You start to see that in displays, professional displays like Panasonic and others. And that's exactly what we were aiming for from the first place. We started from the Pro AV market, from the you can say accessories or equipment, and we proved that this technology, as you said, is highly reliable. And now we are penetrating into end devices. Next step will be HDBaseT switchers. And eventually, we hope that you'll find HDBaseT everywhere. Okay, any TV that you're going to buy will have an HDBaseT port, like you have HDMI today.
Now, Micha, when you mentioned before, when I brought up the issue of bandwidth, I think you mentioned something about 420, and were you referring to the pull down, or let me rephrase the question this way: Is the digital video signal fully uncompressed, or is there some sort of pull down going on when for you to achieve a 4K signal?
No, so HDBaseT, in its nature, it's uncompressed, okay? Exactly like HDMI, okay? We don't remove bits. Mm-hmm. And I was saying about 420, I meant color space. And this is one of the video formats. This is the video format that is being supported today. When you buy today 4K 60 equipment, like projectors, like Sony's and JVC, okay? If you look down, you will see that they support 4K 60, 420. It's color space. Okay. This is the formats, one of many. Okay. And this is the video format that most of the equipment, at least in the upcoming future, is going to use. Okay. So one of the huge benefits of HDBaseT comparing to Ethernet is that it's uncompressed. It was designed and implemented to support native interfaces. Some might say legacy, although I don't feel comfortable saying legacy on HDMI. But that's a huge...
Not yet, anyways.
Not yet, no. But yes, in a way, as I said, from our perspective, HDBaseT is a kind of a superset. We need to be able to pass through all the connectivity that exists. And when we say pass through, it means it's like connecting the wires together. Okay. So that's why it's very important to be able to support uncompressed content, zero latency, okay, no compression at all, decoding and coding, and that's that's one of the main reasons why it's so easy to use, okay? Because in theory, our job is, and so far we did it pretty well, that the consumers will feel as if they have a 100-meter long HDMI cable, a 100-meter long USB cable, a 100-meter long Ethernet cable, RS-232, infrared, and power cable. The good news is that we also allow it to be converged into one cable, okay? But by the way, even if we would come up with a solution that allows you to do a 100-meter long HDMI cable, I can tell you the industry was very happy about that.
Yeah. All right, well, we're kind of closing in on 30 minutes here, and we've got covered a lot of great points here. Wanted to touch on a study I saw come across recently, a Future Sources consulting study, I think out of the UK, that said by 2016 they were predicting 21 million deployed HDBaseT ports, which represents a tremendous rate of growth. I was wondering, how optimistic are you guys about the future of HDBaseT, and how quickly do you think it's really going to hit the mainstream market? Particularly, I'm interested in residential kind of mainstream HomePlay switchers and things of that nature.
Okay, there was a disclaimer in this study that their study only covered the Pro AV market. Okay, they didn't touch upon consumer electronics. So the numbers, at least from our perspective, should be substantial high. Okay. So they were only looking at the Pro AV. They spoke with the Pro AV guys, and if we look at the status that we are at, and HDBaseT is still relatively a new technology. It's like a 3 years old, and if you compare it to other technologies in the future, you'll see that the adoption of HDBaseT is extremely fast. And there is the main reason for that. As you said, it's that it's reliable and it works. And coming from the Pro AV market like you guys are, you know that this is not trivial. I'm still surprised people are coming to me and say, guys, your solution actually works. What does it mean? It's always like that. No. That's the answers I'm getting. In the Pro AV market, people know and knew that they have to compromise. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So the fact that it works helps the industry to easily accept that and adopt that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the consensus that I've heard. The general consensus from my colleagues and people in the commercial industry is that HDBaseT just seems to work, and it's very reliable. So, it's not really a big surprise that it seems to be catching on very quickly. So, I'm excited for, where the industry is going and how it's going to impact our designs and our installation times. And I think it will simplify things and allow us to do more than we could before with less. So I think that's a good thing. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to talk with us, and we hope to stay in touch.
Thank you very much, guys. I really enjoy it, and we're very happy to continue and keep you briefed on future development of HDBaseT.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you so much, Micha.
Thank you, guys.
Well, that wraps up our interview with Micha Risling and the HDBaseT Alliance. So, Jason, what were your final thoughts there?
It was really an interesting interview. It was a great conversation. It was very nice of Micha to join us all the way from Tel Aviv. Was happy to sit down with him and learn a little bit more about the technology. Specifically, I thought it was interesting when he talked about HomePlay and its implication in terms of switchers and things that are going to really make a difference in the residential market. So I was curious to learn a little bit about that, and would love to hear your thoughts on the interview. How'd you think it went?
Yeah, coming from the commercial side of things, bandwidth was something that really captured my attention in trying to figure out, could HDBaseT really handle uncompressed 4K signal? And I think the answer we got from Micha was that HDBaseT can handle current trends in the industry, which is 4K at 60 hertz with a 420 color space. So it is technically uncompressed, but the color space is also technically limited. So it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up and how, what drives these trends. Is it the display technology? Is it the signal transport? Is it the source of content? So yeah, that was the thing that I really found most interesting.
Yeah, I think this will be an interesting year to watch those things. 2014, I think, is going to be a big year for 4K, and I agree that it was interesting to listen to him talk about that, and I'll be curious to see how the technology grows and adapts to accommodate these new technologies that are evolving. But I think, again, that even in its current iteration, HDBaseT is an exciting technology, very reliable means of transporting HDMI, very convenient. So I think they're all great things, and I was really happy to sit down with Micha and learn more. So I appreciated him taking the time, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you to all our listeners for listening to this episode of AV Shop Talk. We hope you found it informative and educational and interesting. If you want to learn more about HDBaseT, you can head over to hdbasett.org or on Twitter at HDBaseT. What do we got coming up next, Jason?
Yeah, on the next episode, we're going to sit down with one of the members of the HDBaseT Alliance and talk a little bit about AVB, and it's a technology that in some ways is similar to HDBaseT and in other ways is not. So it'll be interesting to talk to them and kind of compare and contrast the two technologies.
Right, the AVB Alliance, and by that you meant the Avenue Alliance, because they have a trendy name that's not quite the same as the technology, which is an IEEE protocol, right?
That's right.
Right. All right. Thank you. And good night. I don't know how to close this thing. Bye.
Yeah.
AV Shop Talk is produced independently by Nate Schneider and Jason Griffin, with musical contributions from Colin Owens. His latest album, Trinity, was released in December of 2013. Voiceover talent came from John Perry. When he's not behind a microphone, he's working on the truck. See what he's been up to at johnsoldtruck.com.
AV Shop Talk.